Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Pizza Buffet, powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook here on the Hammer Betting Network. We're live on the Forward Progress channel on YouTube, also at Forward NFL on Twitter. Most of you already know, but this is a show where I run through today's NFL card, top to bottom, rotation number order, and I will lock in any bets that I think are still worth making. I'm going to lock in all of those bets against Pinnacle's lines, as Pinnacle is the official sportsbook partner here of the Pizza Buffet. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook and now available in Ontario. Find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the best bettors play. You must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly. Not available in the US. If you're watching on YouTube right now, I do see your comments on real time. In real time, excuse me. Good morning to everyone who thanked me for, or just wished me a good morning as well. If you're on Twitter, I do not see your comments in real time. If you do want to be part of the broadcast, want to ask any questions, get in on the live chat on YouTube. The link is there right as you're watching on Twitter. The YouTube link is just right above it. I do want to point out a few things. Okay, this churn bomb came in right now. We lost the play this morning, probably, I think. Yeah. But I'll go through all the games regardless, one way or another. Do want to point out a couple things. I'm all about transparency. I know a lot of you that watch weekly on Sundays have been watching for years. This is the 5th year of me doing a show Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. It has not been a great year in terms of the Sunday morning picks. The reality is there are very, very few people in the world that can win betting the NFL on Sundays. And I don't say that as someone to make excuses. This is just the reality. If you go to Pinnacle right now, they're taking $100,000 on NFL sides. That means that they have a pretty strong confidence in where their number is on the games. It's a $100K bet you can make right now if you wanted to. If you're that good at the NFL on Sundays and you think you have an edge in the long run, you should be retired by now, being able to bet 100K and then being able to click it again. So it is inherently challenging to win on Sunday mornings. And I haven't given this educational speech in a while here. Try to make as many bets as possible earlier in the week. Why is it hard to win on Sunday mornings? Because it's very difficult to obtain closing line value. Your main goal as a bettor is obviously to win. The best indicator of success for you in the long run is whether or not you are beating the closing lines. So if you bet earlier in the week, you may not have access to all the information that you need, but you have a much better chance to beat the closing line and to profit in the long run. So I do not consider myself someone in the 0.1% of people that is able to bet into a fully mature market like Sunday mornings at 11:04 a.m. Eastern and be able to win. I think I can profit off the NFL. I do that by placing most of my bets earlier in the week. However, with that said, I do understand that there's a lot of people that are interested in just my opinions on Sunday mornings, whether that's for pick'em pools or maybe some last minute bets, teasers, whatever. The reality of the situation, though, is please make as many bets as possible earlier on in the week. I promise you it is a lot easier to beat the NFL if you're betting on Tuesday or Wednesday or hell, even Sunday night when the openers come out, than it is to wait till game day and tail my picks. I do think that at this point in the day, I'm not ignorant. I do think that I'm coin flipping. That's the reality of the situation. And by the way, I do win a lot of money betting NFL and have over the course of my life. I just, again, I'm not, arrogant or I don't believe I'm in that top tier of NFL bettors. With that said, we will get into it today. One last thing that I have to preach on, because I do get the DM messages on Twitter every week of thanks for the pick. Go F yourself for this pick, whatever. I don't care. I take it all in stride and I do respond to all the DMs. But please play responsibly. If you do go bet at Pinnacle, place down your bets this morning. Don't bet an uncomfortable amount of money, something where you're going to be angered watching the football games. Obviously, we all want to win money, but responsible gaming is extremely important. And once you start to get extremely agitated watching games, you probably have too much money in play at that moment. So just be very mindful of bankroll management and responsible gaming and not going overboard with your picks. Okay, let's get into it. A bunch of stuff today. Just looking at the card, probably should have roughly a handful of plays today based off of where things are right now. And again, the fact that I have plays remaining on the board means one of two things. I think the number hasn't moved far enough, if it has over the course of the week, or there's some sort of market resistance, meaning that there's somebody in the market that likes the opposite of what I like. And you have to trust the market sometimes, but this is an exercise in seeing if I can be a long-term profitable bettor into a sharp sports book like Pinnacle at 11:07 a.m. Eastern time on a Sunday. All right, let's get to it. Pull up Betstamp here. Once again, you can download Betstamp on Android or iOS. You can also check out the app, betstamp.app. You can line shop. You can compare lines. You can track your bets. You can find other winning bettors on the platform. You can analyze all of your pick history, whatever you want to do. There's tons of stuff you can do with Betstamp. Going to give it a quick refresh here so we have the latest lines, and we will get right to it. Okay. If it looks like I'm distracted, I'm not. I mean, I kind of have the France-Poland game on as well, just periodically checking scores there. But I'll keep this to as much NFL as possible. Okay, Cleveland and Houston. So market at Pinnacle 7.5 plus 100. We've seen some sports books out to 8. And the total Pinnacle, the largest number on the board at 47, although the conversion on this 47 is very similar to a 46.5 elsewhere. I talked about this game a few times in other media appearances I did over the course of the week. This is a Cleveland or nothing game, in my opinion. There's nothing that interests me about the Houston Texans. The argument that this is their, quote unquote Super Bowl game with a different coaching regime, with different players who honestly probably don't care about Deshaun Watson all that much. I don't buy into it. I think the Brandon Cooks injury for Houston is big. We saw earlier this year when he was out, they struggled to move the ball. Derek Stingley still out at cornerback for them as well. I think he's missing his third straight game. Obviously, you offset that with David Njoku being out for Cleveland, which is a big loss for them offensively because they don't have a bunch of playmakers. But I do think that despite the fact that Jacoby Brissett hung in there, played well as a backup quarterback, I do think that there's a sizable upgrade here to Deshaun Watson. Now, whether that happens in the first game or not, I'm not sure. And there is definitely an element of uncertainty here because we have a pretty large sample size that tells us what Deshaun Watson is, and that is in the elite tiers of quarterbacks, maybe not the Mahomes Allen, but sort of that tier 2. And I don't know if he gets there in the first game. Did play some preseason this year, but for the most part, hasn't really played competitive football in a couple of years. So that creates an element of uncertainty where I just don't want to get involved on Cleveland laying a big number. What I will say is I know a lot of you out there do like to play teasers. And with the way that the market is right now, Cleveland is now above a touchdown favorite at 7.5. The total in the game being where it is at 46.5. That's a pretty strong teaser play today because you can now tease Cleveland down. You can get them down into that range of like a -1.5 point favorite on a 6-point teaser through 7, through 3. You're maximizing the points that you go through. I think that that's a pretty solid teaser play today. So not going to lock in anything from the full market perspective on this. However, I do think that that is a pretty decent play for today's game there. All right. On to next. We got Pittsburgh and Atlanta. Okay, I'm going to double dip on this game. By the way, as I'm streaming here, I noticed that there's like a little bit of connectivity issues. If anyone does see that or I'm lagging or anything like that, just let me know in the comments because then I can just pause and make sure everything's all set up before I get into a full game. You know what? Let me just quickly get to this comment as well. Will Nick Chubb run for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns? Like this is the issue with Houston, right? It's even if it is their Super Bowl, it's like the worst possible matchup when you get the number 1 ranked rushing offense against the number 32 ranked rushing defense. Deshaun Watson doesn't even have to be good today. He really doesn't. Houston has shown that they cannot stop opposing teams' running games. So very big matchup advantage in favor of Houston. Pittsburgh and Atlanta. I am going to double dip on this game. Like I said, I'm going to play a half unit, so $50 base on both Pittsburgh and the over. So we'll lock in those first two ones. Pretty even edge on both of these. And I do like to lower my stake personally when I'm betting both the side and total in the same game, because it's all predicated on like one of the two units in the game just being off market. And in this case, I am higher on the Pittsburgh offense than the market is on Pittsburgh's offense. And I think a lot of this, for those who've watched this year, I've talked about this many times, but the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule, if you pull it up, they've played a very strong quality of opposing defenses, opposing teams in general, but particularly opposing defenses, which makes the offense look worse than it is. They go last week on Monday Night Football. They score 24 at the Colts. That is not a bad output by any stretch of the imagination. And now they get an Atlanta defense that doesn't generate a pass rush whatsoever. Outside of AJ Terrell, they're really lacking playmakers altogether. I do think Pittsburgh's offense is going to score in this game. You have optimal conditions playing inside the dome. In terms of the over, I think this puts Atlanta in a game state where they are forced to throw more than they typically do. Atlanta's a heavy run team. We've seen that all year long. They'll probably have some success on the ground, but they will have to air it out at some point as well, and play, to keep up in this game. At least that's the way that I envision it. The TJ Watt injury is something that we have to talk about. He was limited in practice. There's a potential he could be on a snap count. I've kind of incorporated that. Somehow it's completely like guesswork on my end in terms of doing that. However, I think that this is off. I don't think the market has caught up quick enough to the Steelers actually being okay. I think they're much better than Atlanta, despite the fact that the Falcons played a good game last week, got a misleading result in that 19-13 loss to Washington. I do like Pittsburgh in this game. All right, next game. Just going to have a sip of coffee here. MC'd a party last night. Vocal cords are killing me. But we power through. Okay. Green Bay and Chicago. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this game. Let's see where we're at here. So market all over the place, mostly fours. Total 45 in this one. Okay. The Bears still hurting in the secondary right now. Kyler Gordon is hurt. Jaquan Brisker's out. Eddie Jackson is on IR. Kindle Vildor, who's their nickel corner, is questionable today. I have not seen an update on him yet, but they're missing a lot of pieces in the secondary. That's particularly a problem because their front seven is already very bad. They traded away Roquan Smith. They traded away Robert Quinn. They don't have much talent. They can't get after the quarterback. It's a very bad Bears defense. The Packers starting without left tackle David Bakhtiari. Not sure that it matters all that much in this particular matchup. It would matter a lot more against some other teams, in my opinion. However, the Justin Fields situation just throws a wrench in this entire game for me. If Justin Fields was healthy, completely healthy, not nursing a shoulder injury, and I knew that the Bears were going to have the same offensive game plan that they've had for the weeks where he has played, I would probably unload on this over, if I'm being honest. I think 45 is way too low for a healthy Fields, but you have to account for the possibility that they're just not going to run Fields, which I think if you turn Justin Fields into a pocket passer, you're not going to have the same effectiveness on offense. Then you also have the possibility that he just doesn't finish the game whatsoever, which, I mean, it'd also be killer. The backup there with Simeon on IR is now Nathan Peterman, and Tim Boyle is there as well. But Nothing to do here. I lean very strongly to Chicago and the over. However, due to the injury situation with Fields, I've just opted not to take that gamble. I do think that if Fields was fully healthy, though, that this number wouldn't be here, the 45 on the total. I think it's only around there because of the fact that there is the injury situation surrounding him. All right. This is actually a good bet, I think. I took Christian Watson to lead the game in receiving at plus 350. Bears secondary is rough. I don't mind that at all. I think you could possibly take some plays on Watson to like lead the league in receiving yardage, long shot plays this week as well. Anytime TD says, yeah, I agree. I think it's a pretty decent matchup. Bakhtiari has been out, seems like 3 years now. He gets talked about all the time. David Bakhtiari is a very, very good left tackle. That's why it gets talked about, whether he's in the lineup or not. They usually slide Elgton Jenkins over to left tackle when Bakhtiari is out. So that's not a problem. But then Elgton Jenkins relinquishes his left guard spot. It causes issues on the interior as well. Jags and Lions. This is one of a few games today. There's probably there's at least a couple that stand out in my mind, where in my inner network of bettors that I deal with, most of them being professional, there's extremely dividing takes on this game. So Jags and Lions, market settled here. Lions -1 at Pinnacle -108. Total's pretty high, 51.5, juiced under, very likely the equivalent right here of a 51. I don't have a strong take on this game. So Jacksonville was the popular side earlier in the week. Detroit's taken some money later in the week. Personally, I think that this is very close to what the quote-unquote right number is in the game. Jacksonville's a very interesting team because they've underperformed their metrics this season. Like, they should be better than they actually have been in terms of record. They've been fairly healthy as a team for the majority of the year. Travis Etienne expected to play today, according to Schefter. We don't have a word on Zay Jones yet, but I'm not sold on the Jags, nor do I think that their game-winning drive against Baltimore last week was some sort of turning point in their season. I don't think that they played a particularly good game last week. As someone who watched a large majority of it, I still think that they're extremely inconsistent on offense. I think that Detroit, to me, Jameson Williams likely to make his debut today, probably on a snap count, a little bit of an upgrade there. They get Romeo Okwara back on the defensive line, which has kind of gone unnoticed this week, but I think is a big deal for a defense that has struggled at points this season, but has been steadily improving. I think this is like just about right. I kind of think these teams are very, very equal. Detroit probably should be in the 1.5 point range at home here. But the Lions are kind of like back to being competitive again after that rash of injuries that they had. And it really, like, when you look at the Lions season-long metrics, you know, they were pretty beat up in the middle of the season. It makes their team look a lot worse than it actually was at that point. If I were to model the games where they've just been healthy, I could get this to be a much higher number. So don't really know what to do here. Small lean to the Lions on this one. Some people will probably be playing this game in teasers in terms of just teasing the underdog up. I don't actually love that, to be honest. I think there's potential where either team could get blown out in this game, and the total is pretty high in this one. So I think that there's way more variance. So not a teaser play that I love, even though I've seen a lot of people this week going in on this one. Okay. Jets and Vikings. We're going to go for a full unit on the New York Jets here. +3, -113 at Pinnacle. I'll take a look at the entire market. Totals at 44. But we're threes everywhere, pretty much. Pinnacle, one of the better prices in market for sure. And the total 44. So I think you definitely need to pump the brakes on all the like Mike White is the savior type of situation. He played very well against the Chicago Bears last week. I don't know that he's the savior going forwards. I think that this is another defense that is very well suited to Mike White playing well. For starters, they don't generate a lot of pressure. Secondly, they play a ton of zone. It was Clev TA who tweeted the exact numbers this morning. I recommend you follow him on Twitter at Clev TA, part of the Hammer Betting Network. But Mike White, has excelled against zone in his career, has struggled against man-to-man. That's not what the Vikings do, especially with the injuries at corner. Andrew Booth out for the year, obviously for them as well. So I don't think Mike White is like the guy that is going to carry the Jets all of a sudden to Super Bowl. I do think he's a big upgrade over Zach Wilson, and I think he can pick apart teams that don't generate pressure and play soft defense. Then on the other side of things, actually, I should point out as well, the Jets activated George Fant off IR. So he's likely starting at right tackle if Dwayne Brown is good to go at left tackle today. That's another upgrade to the offensive line as well. Remember how bad the tackle position has been for the Jets this year with the amount of injuries that they've had. On the other side, you got Minnesota without their left tackle, Christian Darrisaw. I think that's a big blow. It didn't manifest itself against the Patriots last week, but the Jets front seven is very good. I mean, throw records out the window, right? Like, say you didn't know the record of either of these two teams, and you put their stat profiles side by side on paper, the schedules that they've played, everything that you would need, you didn't have the team names. You just had Team A, Team B. There's a very strong chance that you would look at Team A, Jets, and say that this is the better team overall, just based off of their stat profile. And listen, I mean, I've lost money betting against the Vikings this year. I don't think I have the team pegged wrong, to be completely honest. So that's why I'm going back to the well. But they have more of a statistical profile of a 6-win team than a 9-win team. I don't like the matchups for them, particularly in this game. I hope I'm not just getting, Mike White fever. I'm pretty sure that's not the case, but I think this number's wrong. Like I cannot get to 3 in this game. I don't know what I would have to do to get to 3 in this game. I just cannot get there. All right. Still 1-0 France here. And we will get into Washington and the Giants. All right. I talked about games that I've seen people on opposite sides of the game across the board. This would be another one that qualifies. So right now we're seeing Washington -2.5 +100 at Pinnacle. Some books are at 2, but we're roughly all in the 2.5 range. Low total in this one of 40. Ton to talk about for this one in particular, because as it stands right now, before I came on air today, did the entire rundown on the Giants injury situation, which is Darius Slayton, Richie James, Kenny Golladay in the wide receiving core, all with questionable tags. It looks like all 3 are trending towards playing, but we don't have a confirmation on that. Their tight end, Daniel Bellinger, also tagged as questionable. He seems more probable to return from his eye injury. You got John Feliciano back at center for the New York Giants. So that's going to shift Nick Gates over to left guard, who played center last week. In the secondary, Adoree Jackson still out. Fabian Moreau likely to return. He's been up and down this year, but he's one of their starting corners. I think that's extremely important for them. So you have a lot to to cipher through this Giants situation. Then on the other end of the ball, or other side of the field, whatever you want to say, the Commanders. Trey Turner is out, right guard on the offensive line. Had a pretty solid season. They have not activated Chase Young. I don't think he's officially ruled out, but he's unlikely to play. And then you got your starting cornerback, Benjamin St-Juste, who is out as well. Giants come in on extra rest, played on Thanksgiving. They got smoked on Thanksgiving by the Cowboys. Don't know what people they covered the spread, but the closing spread, but don't know what people expected without 3 starting offensive linemen for them. Their top 2 corners, like disaster zone, walking wounded into Dallas. Very, very good football team. I think that there's some positive variance coming in terms of like the reinforcements that they're getting. on the team. But overall, Washington to me is starting to show those signs of, maybe it's time to pump the brakes a little bit. Like, we're getting to a pretty significant difference between Washington and the Giants with the way that this game is getting priced now. And yes, Washington is probably able to run the ball in this game, in this matchup. But if last week's game against Atlanta wasn't a warning sign, I don't know what is. Pretty brutal Atlanta defense last week. You look at what Washington was able to accomplish in that game offensively. As I pull it up here really quickly, 5.2 yards per play. They really struggled to move the ball like whatsoever in that game. Got out-yarded per play by the Atlanta Falcons in that game. You still have Taylor Heineke at a 6.1% turnover rate percentage. That's a little bit misleading because of one particular game, but I think there's enough here as of right now that the Giants are still worth making a small play on. So because the total is low at 40, and I actually lean under on this total, I priced it at 39 or just over 39. I'd rather take the points, the plus 2.5, minus 110, than the plus 118. There's a lot of scenarios where these points are valuable. So I'll go ahead and play a half unit here on the Giants, plus 2.5, minus 110. Okay, we move on. Keep the screen open. Titans and Eagles. What was Heineke wearing pregame? His pregame swag pushed me over the top on this one. I actually have to check that out right now. I love some of the stuff that these guys wear. Oh yeah, there we go. That's it looks like a stud, but I particularly love the hat. It's very what's the TV? It's very Peaky Blinders-esque, the whole outfit. Pretty cool. Okay. Tennessee, Philly. I'll go ahead and play Tennessee plus 5, minus 106, $75. Markets moved back out towards Philly a little bit today. I completely get it. It was kind of like there were some books that got to 4 over the course of the weekend, some 4.5s out there. This is very much like a styles make fights type of situation for me. Pinnacle, very good price here, by the way, on Tennessee. So I'm taking advantage of that. Not that the 5 comes into play a whole lot, but you got basically a team that, is heavy run. We've seen this like many, many, many times before. I'm not surprising anybody by talking about it. But you look at the teams that Philadelphia struggled against recently, like the Commanders on the Monday Night Football game. Commanders, 49 carries in that game. They actually didn't even run the ball that well, but they were able to keep the Philly offense off the field. Boom, they get the win. Packers, Sunday Night Football, close game. Packers run for 236 yards, 5 yards a carry. That was a game where Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And now you get the Titans offense where they run the ball well. They work the play action well. They are, in my opinion, a perennially undervalued team. But they're just not, there's not enough separating these two teams, in my opinion, especially with the matchup advantage that the Titans have on the ground, to not take the points here. You look at Tennessee defensively, Danico Autry out on the D-line again. The entire year, this Titans defense has survived with injuries on defense. They haven't given up more than 20 points in 8 straight games. They've given up, in that span, the average points per game allowed, 13.8. That includes the Kansas City Chiefs on the road at Arrowhead. I mean, it's just too many points. It just is. I mean, it's very appealing to get Tennessee in this role with this amount of points, knowing that, just knowing that they're going to very likely be able to run the ball and that their defense is very likely going to be able to hold them in it as well. The penny lean. Very important to know. This is a good point. Pinnacle taking 100K on the games, offering you the best price on the Titans. I get it. What's the point, though, of making numbers if you're not going to trust your numbers at some point or another, right? There's going to be times where the penny lean is incorrect as well. All right. Quick review so far of where we're at. Okay, so we got Titans 5, Jets 3, Steelers, and the over small half plays. Always pay attention to the dollar amounts as well, and the Giants for a small play as well. We go to Denver and Baltimore. 9.5 Pinnacle, nines across the board, some 8.5s, total of 40, 40.5. Okay. Some positive news for the Broncos today in that looks like their receivers are going to play. Cortland Sutton, who was suffering from an illness, lots of illness going around the NFL right now. Illness, mispractice due to illness. And Jerry Jeudy expected to play as well. So that's the positive for them. The negative is that I don't know that it matters because Russell Wilson might just be the worst starting quarterback in the league right now. Like, they are terrible. They've scored 17 points or fewer in 9 of their 11 games. Holy geez, Mbappe, what a goal right there. Wow. What a strike. They really have only played well offensively against the Raiders. So I still don't think that the Broncos are going to be able to score points. The challenge is Baltimore. My God, this team in the red zone. I just do not get it. They can't score in the red zone anymore. And let's look at red zone defense really quickly. I'm almost certain the Broncos are number 1 by a mile, which they are. They're like 11% better in terms of stopping touchdowns in the red zone than any other team in the NFL. So, like, I don't know that that's going to get corrected this week. You need Baltimore to win by margin. I don't think that that's necessarily a good bet. What I do think is a good bet, again, your sportsbook is at 8.5 or 9, some sort of teaser down through 7 and 3. Although the numbers kind of moved a little bit too far to do that, I think that that's a decent play today. If you do want to end up teasing Baltimore, make sure you got to capture that 3. But I think it's very likely Baltimore wins the game. In terms of covering big margin, the Ravens are not a team that I typically want to bet to do that. If you remember a few weeks ago, we bet Carolina plus 13 at Baltimore. That game ended 13-3. Baltimore just couldn't separate. That's kind of been the case for them this year. They've also blown a lot of 2-score leads late in the game. They've actually lost a lot of those games outright as favorites, but ultimately offense until they get it back on track and start punching it in the red zone, which has been an extreme challenge for them over the course of the last few weeks, then we are going to just avoid that game. All right, this one for me is the most interesting one of the day. Miami and San Fran. 4.5 now, pretty much across the board. Total 46. A lot of books have dropped to 45. I'm going to play the Dolphins for $75. At this point, we're aware of the injury situation, right? Like, you can say you like San Fran because Teron Armstead is out. That's, in my opinion, already factored for in this number. In my argument is that it may be accounted for a little bit too much. Teron Armstead is amazing, by the way. One of the best left tackles in the entire league. Very, very good. That's a huge blow to them. On top of that, they're without their right tackle, Austin Jackson. Not good, but their backup there at right tackle is Greg Little. This guy's like a walking turnstile, absolute disaster. So you have that. On the other side of things, you have Debo probably playing now after it was like way more iffy yesterday. Trent Williams, who missed practice on Friday, very likely going to play. So it basically comes down to the Dolphins and how you think that they will succeed with these injuries at the tackle positions on their O-line. And definitely not a good matchup against the 49ers. With that said, I think that that's been accounted for and too much here. Because, listen, I mean, a lot of when you break down an NFL game, there's going to be like some sort of subjective analysis and stuff like that. The Dolphins, in my opinion, are not going to come out and drop Tua back, 5-7 step drops and wait for plays to develop downfield. They have two very good receivers, especially in terms of yards after catch, in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who they can get the ball out to quickly. And I'm just a very big believer in Mike McDaniel, not because he looks exactly like me, but because he seems like a really smart guy and has been able to get this offense humming for the vast majority of the year. Now, there's a lot of question marks about quality of competition, right? And it's like, well, you're buying high on the Dolphins offense because of the fact that they've played all these bad defenses recently. And that's fair, right? They've played Houston, they've played Cleveland, they've played the Lions, they've played the Bears. The last time they played a good defense was the Steelers in week 7, and they struggled to move the ball consistently in that game. They won, but they struggled. If you're going to say that, you also have to look at who the 49ers have played, because it's not just fair to diminish the Miami offensive accomplishment. The 49ers, the last 4 weeks, are the Saints. By the way, the Saints game last week, incredibly misleading final score at 13-0, because the 49ers managed just 4.7 yards per play on offense, 40% success rate. The Saints had this Chris Olave catch overturned, which I don't even know like how that was overturned. Someone's got to explain that one to me. The Saints had the 2 trips into the red zone where they didn't score, like incredibly misleading final score. Prior to that, the 49ers play Arizona and Mexico City. Arizona's missing a bunch of offensive linemen, complete disaster of a football team. Week 10, they play the Chargers on Sunday Night Football. Chargers without Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. The week before that, they play the LA Rams. Like, the 49ers haven't played anyone recently either. And when they have, the other team's been suffering from injuries. So I think that it's relevant for both sides, exactly as Mickey says here in the chat. And listen, it's very like square. I honestly don't care. I never have cared. I've been betting the NFL a long time. I never have ever looked at what other people bet in the game or where the dollars are at, because all of it is just crap for the most part. So give me Miami. I mean, I'll take a top 3 offense, getting 4.5 points on the road. There's lots of scenarios in which they can get within this number. West points out that Slayton in, Galladay out for the G-men. Galladay, not really a big loss at this point. Would much rather Slayton be playing. Okay. We move on. Let's get the next game in here. Okay. Seattle and the Rams. Okay. Pinnacle 7 plus 108. Roughly the equivalent of the 6.5 everywhere else. Again, you can just use the drop-down box on Pinnacle and you can see all the alternate prices. Total 41. There's a couple things that I lean to in this game. I'll decide whether or not I'm going to lock something in right now. Obviously, Aaron Donald out, which I find, so Aaron Donald out, the market moves towards Seattle. Now we're getting a bunch of buyback on the Rams. You have Terrell Lewis out in the front 7 for the Rams. Pass rusher, he's played 174 pass rush snaps this year. Not a big deal. Their starting corner, Troy Hill, limited by groin injury all week. Game time decision. Starting center, Brian Allen. He's got a million injuries. He's got a knee injury, thumb injury. I don't know what else he's dealing with. He's got a ton of injuries. So basically, you got the Rams as John Wolford, Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek, an offensive line that is the worst in the league, that has had a different combination of offensive linemen in every single game that they've played this year. And there's people that want to bet on that. I would not be one of those. It's to the point now, it's definitely Seattle or nothing. Seattle's averaging almost 27 points a game. It's 4th best in the NFL in terms of scoring offense. I really think that they can move the ball in whichever way they want on this Rams defense. So basically comes down to, would I rather play Seattle on the spread? Would I rather play the total? It is a low total. I will take the over for a $50 amount here. So I think Seattle's going to score in this game. You can opt to just play their team total over if you're, I'm picking the major markets here. You could opt to go team total over. With that said, it's Wolford gives you a much better chance of the Rams scoring, in my opinion, especially in garbage time, than what's his name that played a week ago? why is his name eluding me right now? It'll come to me in a second. You guys can help me out in the chat. I'm horrible with my memory, especially Bryce Perkins. So, you get into a situation here where I think they're upgrading at quarterback, and the game script is very likely Seattle leading, Seattle scoring a lot of points. The Rams have to throw. I think Wolford can do that against the Seattle defense, which is not all that great. And give me a small play on the over here. I priced this closer to 43. There is obviously some uncertainty built in here because of the John Wolford quarterback situation. However, that's it. Carr asks, why does Penny hold Philly -5 while other books go to 4.5? Another example, Penny, Seattle -7 while other books 6.5. Okay, so Pinnacle is a sharp sports book. They take here's the advantage of playing at Pinnacle for any single bettor out there. Pinnacle's never going to limit you like another sports book does. You have all these people complaining all the time about, oh, I bet at this book or that book, and now I'm limited to $1.25. Pinnacle doesn't do that. They have their own trading team in-house. They offer big limits to everyone. So they often take a stance in market on which side that they like, and they can deal whatever number they like because of there are actually sharp people betting there that can actually shape a line. So, yes. I love the comments about Giants power rating goes up with Golladay out. Good news on Golladay. Yeah, I mean, bad contract. I'd still rather him be playing, even though sometimes he does look like he is running in mud for the New York Giants. Okay, talked about how we lost a play before we started here. Kansas City and Cincy. I mean, it actually hasn't really moved a ton. There was a little bit of buyback here, but this was always my number in the game. So 2.5 is where we settle in market right now. Total's the highest on the board at 53. I never really had a numbers edge on the Kansas City Chiefs all week, but I was trying to find a way to play the Kansas City Chiefs this week because there's just so few of these scenarios that we get where you just basically need Patrick Mahomes to win a game. Now, there's obviously more to that than football. You're going to get the return of Jamar Chase for the Cincinnati Bengals. KC will be without Frank Clark, so you'll see more of Carlos Dunlap there. Their left guard, Joe Thuney, we got to keep an eye on that one because he's expected to play, but he was downgraded to questionable yesterday. He's one of the best pass blocking guards in the entire league, so that would be a loss for them. I like the Bengals. I think they're underrated. There's, you look at, they've had Kansas City's number in the past. Part of that reason why Steve Spagnuolo blitzes a lot and has blitzed Joe Burrow a lot. And Joe Burrow is not a guy that you typically want to blitz a lot. That's why he torched the Chiefs a couple of times last year, especially in the second half of those games. But yeah, listen, it's the most nonsensical square, don't have a numbers edge. Would love to just be on KC in this game. I have a feeling that tomorrow I'm just going to wake up, or tonight after this game is over, leading into Sunday Night Football, it's going to be like, why did I not just bet Kansas City and needing them to win the game? But it's where it is now, 2.5. I'm just going to leave it alone and trust the numbers and hope that I'm valuing everything correctly. Lots of people talking about the Chernoff release. Chernoff's release was -2.5, -110. And he cited Circa, Win, PPH, and Caesars for that release. All right. Let's keep it moving. Next game. Sorry, I don't have much more of a breakdown on that, honestly, but my numbers are right on market there. So it's difficult for me to say one way or another that something is off. Chargers and Raiders. One-way action towards the Raiders this week. -2.5, -103. Right now, total been bet down. This is entirely to do with the injuries to the Chargers offensive line. Plain and simple. I don't think that there's any other explanation. You do have Nate Hobbs back for the Raiders, not really moving the number all that much, but the Chargers are cursed. They're already without Rashawn Slater at left tackle. They lose Corey Linsley, their center. They lose the right tackle, Corey Pipkins. Mike Williams is still out as well. Drew Tranquill missed practice on Friday with an illness going around. Nasir Adderley has a thumb injury. There's that. There is the potential that these teams, the Chargers are 6-5, the Raiders are 4-7. The Chargers have a minus 30 point differential. The Raiders have a minus 11 point differential. So there could be something there as well, in that somebody just thinks the Chargers are overvalued and the Raiders are undervalued. I think we're at the point now where the number has moved like a titch too far, but there's not enough for me to come back and play the other side on the Chargers. I make this game like minus 1.75 Raiders. Still don't know, still haven't won a bet on the Raiders game in like 4 calendar years. They're that team for me. So nothing strong here. I think at this point, the injuries in the game have definitely been captured overall in terms of who the Chargers are missing on the O-line. Are the Raiders the team that's going to capitalize on it? Maybe. I mean, they've struggled to generate a consistent rush this year, which is kind of surprising. You thought going into the year, Max Crosby, Chandler Jones on the outside, that would be like a very formidable duo. Maybe today is the day that they go off. I just don't have a strong opinion. I wish the Chargers O-line was healthy. I would have unloaded on the over in this game, but it is what it is right now. I don't know what you guys got against the light mode. I like it. Dark mode, I'm not a fan of during the day, even at night. Like I still prefer the light mode. I don't know. That's just me. You can change betstamp to dark mode if you'd really like to. If you're really interested in doing so. Okay, final game today, I think. Right? Sunday Night Football. Let's bring it up. Dark mode sucks. Dark mode sucks. Straight to the point. Hilarious. Am I behind? And we got another Mbappe goal? I don't want to see more Mbappe goals. You guys are, oh God. There it is. Poland played such a good first half too. And then it just went to shit. Mbappe's insane, man. What a shot. Okay. Cowboys and Colts. 10.5, 44.5 is where we've settled at right now. Okay. Very, very, very small leans to the Cowboys and the under in this game. Dallas, obviously the illness this week, Trayvon Diggs, Michael Gallup, both expected to play. They missed practice. Indy's got some key injuries that have to be accounted for. Their right tackle, Braden Smith, like the Colts O-line is already bad. You lose a starter at a tackle position against the Cowboys, probably not going to end well. They're missing their starting cornerback, Kenny Moore. Indy just loses the turnover margin every single game. They're minus 10 in turnovers. Last year, they were the best in the league, plus 14. Now they're minus 10. I feel like this is a game where both teams try to establish the run. The Indy defense has been good against the run, but offensively, I just don't see the path to success for the Colts in this game. I really don't. I don't know that O-line can hold up. I know Dallas is susceptible to the run, but I don't think that they have to fear the pass in this game. It's basically like either I'm putting a half unit on the under and the Colts, or I'm just passing, and I'm probably just passing on this game. I don't see enough of value there. The uncertainty definitely with the Colts offensive line is extremely concerning in this game. I think their defense is pretty criminally underrated, but I'd like to see it now that they lose one of their starting corners against a team that is pretty deep at receiver as well. So I'm going to pass on this one, but strong leans to Indy and the under. All right. Picks for the day. Tennessee +5 for $75. Giants +3 for $100. Pittsburgh -1 over 43, $50 each. Just more money. Okay. Giants +2.5 -110, $50. More money on San Fran, it's flooding in. Definitely have to be concerned about that, but whatever. I'm trusting my number there. I cannot get to 4.5. And then over 41, Seattle and the Rams. That is going to be everything. I will answer some questions before I go. Monday Night Football thoughts. Yes. I mean, obviously the Saints have taken a ton of money. Really depends on the price in the game, but I think anything Saints 4 is playable. Again, very misleading result for them last week. But the reality is the Bucks offense is not good. Like, they can't score right now. Offensively, we're looking at 7 straight games now, 22 points or less. They just cannot generate offense. And that is not a team that I think you want to bet to win by margin. So for pools purposes, everyone asking out there, I do like the Saints. In terms of programming notes, so I am back at 8 p.m. Eastern time, myself and Suma, Fabian Somer, will break down Sunday Night Football, 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight. That will go live from the Hammer HQ on YouTube. Please subscribe to the Hammer HQ on YouTube. You'll get notifications when we go live. On this channel, Forward Progress, I'm back tonight, 10:30 Eastern time. Myself, Clive Bixby. It's the usual. We'll recap the entire NFL day, and we'll look ahead to next week. We'll make some predictions on where the market is going in terms of where we think the closing numbers will end up. I think we do a fairly good job of them. There were some misses this week for sure. I completely whiffed on San Fran and Miami last week, but that's live 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. Again, subscribe on the Forward Progress YouTube channel. You'll get a notification when we go live. If you do enjoy the content, everyone, please subscribe to the channel. Please smash that like button. It does go a long way. It does help us, and we can continue producing more and more of this content going forwards. Really quickly, okay, questions. Are you leaning Cowboys or Colts? Colts. I lean to Colts at plus 10.5. Do you like a Browns Seahawks teaser? Yes, I do. You should also try to put it in a money line parlay, though, and see if it pays more than the teaser itself. Always do that whenever you're playing those two big favorites down on a teaser. Double check what the money line parlay pays instead. If my numbers really like the Chargers, should I let the line move back me off, or do I add to my play at this number? Tough question to answer. Somebody in the market strongly disagrees with you, Adam. For me, I'm not the right person to answer this because it's like pure gut feel for me whenever I want to do this. I think you got to be in the same situation. At the end of the day, you're playing into the most efficient market now at this point in the week. Tough one to say. I wish I could advise better, but I can't. Curtis asks, Ravens under. That was one of the plays that I was closest to locking in that I didn't. I think that total is a little bit too high. I think it got bet up on the news that the Broncos wide receivers might play. I don't know that it matters a whole lot, especially unless the Ravens get it together in the red zone. Then you're going to have problems because they do move the ball between the 20s, but that's where we're going to get it. All right. I think that's it for questions. Appreciate it. Everyone in Ontario, make sure you check out Pinnacle. If you're 19 plus, please bet responsibly. I'll talk to everyone later on today. Good luck with your bets today, unless you're opposite me, in which point I can't wish you good luck, but whatever. I hope you win everything else. This has been the Pizza Buffet here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel on the Hammer Betting Network, powered by Pinnacle. I will see everyone else later on tonight. Peace.